The educator Dr. Maria Montessori once said,
"The child developing harmoniously and the adult improving himself at his side make a very exciting and attractive picture."
Welcome to Montessori Education with me, Jesse McCarthy, where we talk raising children and educating students while bettering ourselves right alongside them.
Hi all, so it's good to be back. I am a week late with this episode. We'll actually be doing every 3 weeks now instead of every 2, as I just have so much going on right now. I mean, it's good stuff, but just a lot. Anyways, with that aside, I have something cool for today. We will be talking about a particular material in Montessori, and that's called the Color Box or color tablets. And this work is mainly in the CASA or primary Montessori classroom, and that's for children ages around 3 to 6 years. And I'll have actually Maria Montessori do most of the talking about this material, as I will read a sizable passage about it from one of her books. Now, before I share Montessori's words about these tablets, I want to tell you a story about something related to them. And it was an eye-opening experience I had many years ago in an art class. So I was teaching history at the time, and there were different subjects and so forth, but we had an art teacher who would come in and do an after-school class with the children. And this, I think it was ranging from like 5-year-olds all the way up to 6th grade or something like that. And I just decided to take the class like as a child, like basically sitting next to the other students. And I just remember this, it might have been the first day of the class, but the teacher asked everyone there. So it's basically me, I'm this adult, and the rest of them are children. And she just said, "What color is the sky?" Again, we're just sitting in seats inside of a classroom, and she asked that. And it's pretty easy. It's blue, right? But then we went outside to look at the sky. For real. And at first, it's blue. But as we looked a little bit closer, and as she started to point things out, you started to see that it's not just blue, right? There's all sorts of different shades and colors and so forth going on and on any particular day. I remember on that day, she pointed out this little bit of pink, and it really kind of shook me, because it was this sense of like, wow, I've been thinking of the sky as just blue. I don't know, maybe that's, naive of me, and I don't know, what would you say, childish? I don't like to kind of label it like that, because I'm sure there's a lot of children who see more than just blue. But this was like an early 20s me just thinking, oh yeah, the sky's blue. So she really helped me to see, the way I'd put it, as a part of the world that I hadn't seen before. And this is just by kind of focusing my attention on the colors in the sky. Now, I want to know, this isn't some kind of pretentious like nonsense, like, oh, wow, I can see these beautiful colors. It's just really like, I now can see more colors in the sky because I'm looking a little bit more clearly, which is huge to me. Because before that, I don't think I was really looking. Like all of that's coming in, but I wasn't really consciously paying attention to it. So I was missing a part of the world out there, reality. Now, what does this have to do with young children and Montessori and these color tablets? Well, I'll put a question to you. So how are we as adults, this is teachers, parents, how are we helping children to see and experience more of the world? In a way kind of like that. And just across the board, like how are we doing that? So this is where in comes for today, these color tablets or the color box. And this basically refers to the box that holds the tablets when they say color box. But some people say color tablets, some say color box. Today, some schools have these as literally plastic tablets with colors on them. I think that's the majority of Montessori schools usually have that. But back in Maria Montessori's day, they were actually little wooden tablets wrapped in silk. It's just beautiful, beautiful material. So sometimes they're also referred to as color spools. Anyway, I'm going to let Maria Montessori take over from here in explaining these things. Note that I'll also post some pictures on the episode page. So if you want to actually see these things too, definitely head over there. That will be at montessorieducation.com, and in the latest podcast episode I think I'm going to name this color box or color tablets. Anyways, quick other note too, that the material is a bit more extended now than what Montessori is about to say when I going to read this passage. For instance, there is now a simpler version of what she'll be discussing, and this only has a few colors in a box. but her explanation works all the same. Okay, I think I'm prepping the passage way too much now, so let's just get to it. Here's Maria Montessori on the colored tablets, literally from her book called Dr. Montessori's Own Handbook. Quote, and we'll just begin. This is the set of tablets covered with bright silk of shaded colors. The set consists of 2 separate boxes, each containing 64 colors. That is, 8 different tints, each of which has 8 shades carefully graded. The first exercise for the child is that of pairing the colors. That is, he selects from a mixed heap of colors the 2 tablets which are alike and lays them out, one beside the other. The teacher naturally does not offer the child all the 128 tablets in a heap, but chooses only a few of the brighter colors, for example, red, blue, yellow, and prepares and mixes up 3 or 4 pairs. Then, taking one tablet, perhaps the red one, she indicates to the child that he is to choose its counterpart from the heap. This done, the teacher lays the pair together on the table. Then she takes perhaps the blue, and the child selects the tablet to form another pair. The teacher then mixes the tablets again for the child to repeat the exercise by himself, i.e. to select the 2 red tablets, the 2 blue, the 2 yellow, etc., and to place the 2 members of each pair next to one another. Then the couples will be increased to 4 or 5, and little children of 3 years old end by pairing of their own accord 10 or dozen couples of mixed tablets. When the child has given his eye sufficient practice in recognizing the identity of the pairs of colors, he is offered the shades of one color only, and he exercises himself in the perception of the slightest differences of shade in every color. Take, for example, the blue series. There are 8 tablets in graduated shades. The teacher places them one beside another, beginning with the darkest, with the sole object of making the child understand what is to be done. She then leaves him alone to the interesting attempts which he spontaneously makes. It often happens that the child makes a mistake. If he has understood the idea and makes a mistake, it is a sign that he has not yet reached the stage of perceiving the differences between the graduations of one color. It is practice which perfects in the child that capacity for distinguishing the fine differences, and so we leave him alone to his attempts. On a side note here, and this is me speaking now, adults can actually find this work challenging. It is not easy to grade minor shades of color. It really works at refining your senses. I mean, I remember when I did this when I was being trained for 3 to 6 year olds in my Montessori training, and man, it was difficult at first. So anyways, back to Maria Montessori. There are 2 suggestions that we can make to help him. The first is that he should always select the darkest color from the pile. This suggestion greatly facilitates his choice by giving it a constant direction. Secondly, we can lead him to observe from time to time any 2 colors that stand next to each other in order to compare them directly and apart from the others. In this way, the child does not place a tablet without a particular and careful comparison with its neighbor. Finally, the child himself will love to mix the 64 colors and then to arrange them in 8 rows of pretty shades of color with really surprising skill. In this exercise, also the child's hand is educated to perform fine and delicate movements, and his mind is afforded special training and attention. He must not take hold of the tablets anyhow. He must avoid touching the colored silk, and must handle the tablets instead by the pieces of wood at the top and bottom. To arrange the tablets next to one another in a straight line at exactly the same level, so that the series looks like a beautiful shaded ribbon, is an act which demands a manual skill only obtained after considerable practice. These exercises of the chromatic sense lead, in the case of older children, to the development of the color memory. A child having looked carefully at a color is then invited to look for its companion in a mixed group of colors, without, of course, keeping the color he has observed under his eye to guide him. It is, therefore, by his memory that he recognizes the color, which he no longer compares with a reality but with an image impressed upon his mind. The children are very fond of this exercise in color memory. It makes a lively digression for them, as they run with the image of a color in their minds and look for its corresponding reality in their surroundings. It is a real triumph for them to identify the idea with the corresponding reality and to hold in their hands the proof of the mental power they have acquired. Okay, that is Maria Montessori on the color box or color tablets. And real quick on that last note, there's also similar to what she's saying, as a kind of extension in the classroom, when a child has mastered certain colors and shades, you can actually do an exercise with them where you might ask them you might say something like, can you find an item in the classroom that has the same color as this tablet? And you might give them one that has a certain color. And then the child, and this is super excitedly and real focus, he or she will go on in a little detective journey to find something in the room of the same color. Like, it is so fun for them and definitely challenging at times. And this is, again, one of those situations where you're looking more closely at your world now, or at your environment, in this case, inside the classroom. Related, and this is the main image for the podcast episode, it's so rad to me because someone shared it and let me know that the creation was done organically by a child. This is of his own initiative. If you can't see the photo right now, it's of all sorts of different objects matched with the color tablets. Like this little red heart thing with a matching red tablet, like a pink bracelet with a pink tablet, and then like this little white rock with the white tablet, and kind of on with all these different items. It's just so cool. And just a child just started to do that, to match these items with the color tablets. So the end goal here with this is really for children to be able to see the world better and better. I mean, like clearer and clearer. I mean, this is one of the main goals with this. Like back in that art class when I thought the sky was just blue, whereas it, of course, has so much more to offer to my eyes. So in a similar way, we want to show the world to the children and help them to see and explore it more and more. So when they have all these different colors, they've got so much more to go on than just kind of the traditional preschool daycare. You've got your blue, you've got your yellow and your red, and just those traditional colors. But now some might say at this point, like, well, who really cares, right? And I'm not going to go into like a dissertation on why this is so great for one's life, but I do want to at least share one related example from history, or that I think is related, and we'll see, of just how important it is to really look at the world clearly, and for oneself, kind of to refine our ability to see everything out there. So back in the Middle Ages, dissecting bodies, and this will make sense in a second, but it was considered by many to be blasphemous or really wrong, basically for any reason. So scientists would instead just read text about what humans' insides looked like. I don't actually know if we can call such people scientists, for they were literally just reading the work of people who came before them instead of doing independent research. But anyways, that's a side point. The fact is, for hundreds of years, people just weren't doing dissections. They were relying on past information. But things began to change during the Renaissance, and people, they wanted to look again, as some of the ancients had done. Now, there's a related quote that I love here. I think that makes sense, but it's by Montessori. Quote, "We bear too much in our education the result of a time when goodness was united with having the eyes cast down. We must open our eyes." End of quote. So I kind of think of much of the Middle Ages, eyes cast down. Renaissance, it's kind of opening our eyes back up to the world, to the things in it, dissecting human bodies, seeing what the insides look like. Anyways, Renaissance period, people started to be more curious generally, and some specifically in anatomy. And some of these curious people were artists. And that's, for instance, somebody I really love, Michelangelo. Now, I'm sharing this because there is a connection between being able to actually see the insides of a human body and for an artist to be able to realistically draw or sculpt, in this case, that body. So as a result of dissections, like of actually looking at the innards of the human body versus kind of just glancing over it or not wanting to go deep, the art of the time became increasingly more real, more beautiful. I mean, if you've ever done comparisons of medieval artwork versus Renaissance artwork, you can see the drastic change. And if you've ever seen Michelangelo's statue of David or his Pieta, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the stone almost looks real. It really seems like if you touch the sculpture, it'd feel like an actual human being. I mean, it's crazy to do that with stone. Anyways, these monumental works of art, they would be impossible without Michelangelo's refined observational skills. Like he spent hours after hours dissecting and comparing the slightest variations of what he saw so that he could recreate the human form in the real world in his artwork. And in the same way, when you think about that art class I took and maybe a painter who captures, say, a sunset on canvas, they must have incredibly refined skills in seeing different colors and shades, kind of much more than a layman's eyes could see. Now, he's not looking at cadavers, of course, but it's the same type of curiosity and desire to really look closely at the world, not just, glaze over things. So without this type of focus and like discrimination in looking at things, the sky would just be some plain blue, like I once saw it. Not very real, not very attractive. The better an artist can see things in the world, the better he can recreate them. He can recreate them creatively in his art or her art. And so here, in connection with Montessori, that activity in the classroom of helping children to refine their senses, and in this case of sight with the color tablets, we help children to better appreciate the world around them, to take notice of differences, even slight shades of differences, to make connections between colors, to literally see more out there. Like they start to see these colors in the real world and make connections. So generally, the Montessori sensorial materials, like this color box or color tablets, it helps children to experience more of reality and for themselves. I mean, think of all these like subtle, just shades of colors children get in Montessori in this one example of material, and there's so many different materials, versus, again, that bland and loud colors in most daycares. You've got this, I'm just thinking of that yellow and blue and red. It's just nasty to me. I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, it's ugh. And there are other values with the color box, especially in the focus that it brings to young children when they're doing the activity. But today I wanted to really just emphasize how much it does for something we kind of take for granted in our own lives, and that's our sense of sight. These color tablets do an incredible job at refining a child's senses, sense of sight, and thus adding some joy to a child's life. And really, even to ours, like our own sense of looking at colors, I'd say try it out for yourself. Maybe ask a Montessori teacher to try these things in the classroom. If you know a teacher, maybe let you visit the classroom after hours and you can play with the material yourself. When you're being trained in Montessori, that's what you do for hours. Hours and hours and hours of working with these materials. But even if you're a parent or you're just curious about this, ask a teacher if you can, borrow an item and just, play with it. It's a lot of fun. Now, and if this isn't your thing, know that the color box is just one of many sensorial materials in a Montessori casa or primary classroom. Like there are so many others, and they're each dealing with one of our senses. For example, there's touch with this activity called the rough and smooth boards. There's the sound boxes for refining a child's auditory sense. And there's even a couple fun activities for smell and taste. I've rarely seen those out in a lot of classrooms, but if they are out, they're very cool stuff. So check them out if you're curious. And kind of as I noted there, sometimes these items might not be in a Montessori classroom that you're at. It might be because not a real Montessori school that you're at, or it's potential because the teacher just decided that, she's going to switch things up for the children she's working with. Anyways, I just note that because, I don't want you going out to, you have a child in Montessori and the teacher doesn't have the material there and you're like, why isn't that in here? The real Montessori would have that. It's like, no, teachers mix things up, so they might not necessarily have these out on the shelves. Anyways, that's it. That's what I got for you today. It's kind of short and sweet, hopefully. If you've enjoyed this episode or others, please let me know by liking it on really whatever social media you use, or possibly sharing it with others. Or of course, you can always leave a review somewhere or a comment like Apple Podcasts, which is super helpful. And I love reading them. Anyways, whatever way you do this, kind of showing your love, I appreciate it again. All right. We will be back in 3 weeks now, not 2. See you soon. Adios.